Have you ever looked at a map of the United States? Right in the middle, you'll find Missouri. It's often called the Show Me State, a nickname that speaks volumes about its character. People here don't just take your word for it, they want you to show them. This spirit of curiosity and practicality is woven into Missouri life. It's a place that invites you to look closer, to discover the stories hidden beneath the surface. It's more than just a state you pass through. Missouri is a destination all on its own, a true crossroads of American culture and history. The state's central location means it has been a meeting point for different cultures, ideas, and people for centuries, creating a unique blend that you just can't find anywhere else in the country. The nickname the Show Me State has a history that is as interesting as the state itself. One story says it came from a speech by a Missouri congressman named Willard Duncan Van Diver in 1899. He said, "I come from a state that raises corn and cotton and cockleburs and Democrats, and frothy eloquence neither convinces nor satisfies me. I am from Missouri. You have got to show me." This phrase perfectly captures the spirit of the people here. They are grounded, honest, and value real experiences over fancy words. This attitude makes visiting Missouri a truly authentic experience, where what you see is what you get and the welcome is always genuine. So, get ready to be shown. In the next 25 minutes, we are going to pull back the curtain on this incredible state. We will travel from its bustling city street to its serene natural parks. We will dive into its rich history, from the Native American tribes who first called this land home to the brave pioneers who set out to build a new life. We will taste its delicious food and listen to the rhythms of its music. Forget everything you thought you knew about the middle of America. Missouri is ready to show you its heart, its soul, and all the hidden gems that make it a place you will want to love and return to again and again. Missouri's story is deeply connected to its two mighty rivers, the Mississippi, the Missouri. These powerful waterways are not just lines on a map, they are the lifeblood of the state. The Missouri River, the longest in North America, flows from the west, while the massive Mississippi River forms the state's entire eastern border. They meet just north of St. Louis, creating a powerful confluence that has shaped the land and its history for thousands of years. Think of these rivers as the original highways carrying people, goods, and ideas that would eventually build a nation. Exploration, trade, and settlement. Long before European explorers arrived, these rivers were home to vibrant Native American civilizations. The Mississippian culture, for example, built incredible cities with massive earthen mounds that still stand today. The Osage, Missouri, and other tribes thrived here, using the rivers for transportation, fishing, and farming the rich soil of the floodplains. The rivers were central to their lives, providing everything they needed to flourish. When French explorers like Jacques Marquette and Louis Joliet paddled down the Mississippi in the 17th century, they weren't discovering an empty wilderness. They were entering a land already rich with culture and history, all centered around these flowing waters. The arrival of Europeans marked a new chapter for this river-centric land. French fur trappers and traders established the first permanent settlements, like Saint Genevieve and St. Louis, strategically placed along the Mississippi River. These towns became bustling hubs of commerce, connecting the vast interior of the continent with the port of New Orleans and the wider world. The rivers made Missouri a gateway, a crucial link between the established eastern colonies and the untamed western frontier. Control of these waterways meant control of trade and expansion, making Missouri a prized piece of territory in the eyes of growing empires. This geography is the key to understanding everything about the state. Its position at the junction of these two great rivers made it the starting point for some of America's greatest adventures. The Lewis and Clark expedition launched from here, heading up the Missouri River to map the vast, newly acquired Louisiana Purchase. Countless pioneers followed, their wagon trains gathering on the riverbanks before heading west on the Santa Fe Trail, Oregon Trail, California Trail. The rivers didn't just shape the landscape, they shaped the destiny of a nation, and Missouri was right at the heart of it all. History here isn't just in museums, it flows with the current. Missouri is a place of beautiful and surprising contrast. It's where the flat plains of the Midwest begin to ripple and rise into the rugged hills of the Ozark Mountains. In the northern part of the state, you'll find gentle, rolling farmland, a landscape defined by agriculture and quiet country life. But as you travel south, the terrain dramatically changes. The land becomes a stunning tapestry of steep hills, deep valleys, clear springs, and dense forests. This is the Ozark Plateau, one of the oldest mountain ranges in North America, offering a wild and scenic beauty that feels a world away from the northern plains. This diversity in landscape is mirrored in the state's communities. Missouri is home to two major metropolitan areas. On the eastern edge, you have St. Louis, a city with a rich history tied to the Mississippi River and French colonial roots. It feels older with its historic brick architecture and a strong European influence. On the western side, there is Kansas City, a vibrant, energetic city known for its world-class barbecue, thriving arts scene, and a legendary jazz heritage. It feels more like a western city, a place built by railroads and cattle drives with a forward-looking spirit. Between these two urban giants, you'll find a constellation of charming small towns. Places like Hannibal, the boyhood home of Mark Twain, seem to be frozen in time, allowing you to step right into the pages of his classic novels. There's Hermann, a picturesque town nestled in the Missouri River Valley, famous for its German heritage and beautiful wineries. Each small town has its own unique story, its own local festival, and its own special brand of hospitality. This incredible variety is what makes Missouri so special. You can hike through ancient mountains in the morning, explore a sophisticated art museum in the afternoon, listen to soulful blues music at night. You can enjoy the peace and quiet of the countryside or dive into the energy of a bustling city. This blend of nature and culture, of history and modernity, of rural charm and urban cool, creates a destination that is constantly surprising. Missouri is not just one thing, it's a rich and complex mosaic, and every piece tells a fascinating story. Long before the Gateway Arch graced the skyline of St. Louis, and even before the first European explorers dipped their paddles into the Missouri River, this land was already home. The story of Missouri doesn't begin with maps and flags, it begins with footprints left in the rich soil thousands of years ago. Archaeologists have found evidence of human life here that dates back at least 12,000 years. These early inhabitants were Paleo-Indians, nomadic hunters, who followed herds of large animals like mammoths and mastodons across a very different landscape. They lived in small mobile groups, crafting distinctive stone tools to survive in a world that was just emerging from the last ice age. Their lives were a constant journey, a deep connection to the land and the seasons. As centuries passed, the climate warmed and the massive ice age animals disappeared. The people adapted, developing new ways to live. This next period, known as the Archaic period, saw people become more settled. They learned to hunt smaller game like deer and turkey, and they began to rely more on fishing and gathering wild plants, nuts, and berries from the abundant forests and rivers. They created more sophisticated tools, including groundstone axes for clearing trees and hooks carved from bone for fishing. This was a time of innovation, of learning the rhythms of the land in a more intimate way. These early Missourians were laying the groundwork for the complex societies that would follow, their knowledge passed down through countless generations. The next major chapter in Missouri's deep history is the Woodland period. This is when two revolutionary technologies began to take hold: pottery and agriculture. For the first time, people could create durable, fireproof containers to cook and store food, which changed everything about their daily lives. They also began to cultivate native plants like squash, sunflower, and goosefoot marking the first steps toward farming. This led to more permanent villages, often built along the fertile river valleys. They also began building burial mounds for their dead, a practice that shows a growing complexity in their social and spiritual lives. These were not just simple hunter-gatherers anymore, they were becoming communities with deep roots in the land. Around the year 700 AD, something extraordinary began to happen in the heart of North America, and Missouri was at its epicenter. A new and powerful culture emerged, one that would build cities and create monumental works of art and engineering. We call these people the Mississippians, or more simply, the mound builders. They were not a single tribe but a vast civilization linked by trade, religion, and a shared way of life across the Midwest and Southeast. Their society was highly organized, powerful chiefs, skilled artisans, thousands of farmers, maize, beans, squash. This agricultural revolution allowed them to support large, concentrated population and build cities on a scale never before seen north of Mexico. The most famous achievement of the Mississippian culture is their massive earthen mounds. These were not random piles of dirt, they were carefully constructed pyramids with flat tops, built by hand, one basketful of earth at a time. Some mounds were used as platforms for the homes of chiefs and priests, elevating them above the common people. Others were used for ceremonies or as burial places for important leaders. The largest Mississippian city, Cahokia, was located just across the river from modern-day St. Louis. At its peak, around 1100 AD, it was larger than London was at the time, with a population of perhaps 20,000 people. Its central plaza was dominated by a colossal mound now called Monk's Mound, which remains the largest prehistoric earthwork in the Americas. St. Louis itself was once known as Mound City because of the dozens of Mississippian mounds that dotted its landscape before the city expanded. Though most were leveled in the 19th century to make way for development, the memory survives. Today you can still visit places like the Sugarloaf Mound, the last remaining mound in St. Louis, or explore mound groups preserved in state parks throughout Missouri. These silent, grassy structures are powerful monuments to a lost world. They speak of a society with a deep understanding of engineering, astronomy, and social organization. Standing before one, you can't help but feel a sense of awe por the perpatepel por pola sentiale e posuro posula por who built them. By the time the first Europeans arrived, the great Mississippian cities had been mysteriously abandoned. No one knows for certain why. It could have been disease, climate change, warfare, or a combination of factors. But the influence of the mound builders lived on. The tribes that the French and Spanish explorers encountered, like the Osage, Missouri, were their descendants. They carried on the traditions, the agricultural knowledge, and the deep spiritual connection to the land that had been forged over centuries. The mounds they left behind are Missouri's pyramids, a tangible link to a sophisticated and powerful chapter of Native American history that is too often forgotten. When French explorers first navigated the great rivers of this region, they did not find an empty land. They encountered the descendants of the mound builders, thriving tribal nations with rich cultures and deep connections to this place. Two of the most prominent tribes were the Osage and the Missouri. The Missouri tribe, whose name means people of the big canoes, lived primarily along the river that now bears their name. They were skilled farmers and hunters, living in large settled villages near the confluence of the Grand and Missouri rivers. Their strategic location made them important players in the regional trade networks, but also vulnerable to conflict with other tribes and eventually the ravages of European diseases. The Osage were a powerful and influential nation whose territory covered much of what is now southern Missouri, western Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. They called themselves Children of the Middle Waters, a name reflecting their belief that they originated from the sky and the earth. The Ozarks had a sophisticated social structure divided into two main groups representing the sky and the earth, which created balance within their society. They were masterful hunters known for their biannual buffalo hunts on the Great Plains, which provided food, clothing, and shelter. They controlled a vast territory and were known for their strength as warriors and their skill as diplomats, commanding respect from both neighboring tribes and early European arrivals. Life for these tribes was intricately woven with the rivers and the seasons. The fertile floodplains provided rich soil for growing corn, beans, and squash. The dense forests offered abundant game, nuts, and berries. The rivers themselves were highways for their dugout canoes, connecting them to other communities for trade and social gatherings. Their spiritual beliefs were tied to the natural world around them. They saw the divine in the flow of the water, the strength of the oak trees, and the life-giving power of the sun. This was a world where every part of the landscape had meaning, and their relationship with it was one of respect and reciprocity, not just of use. The story of the Missouri tribe is a tragic one. Weakened by constant warfare with rival tribes and decimated by smallpox epidemics brought by Europeans, their numbers dwindled rapidly in the 18th century. By the early 1800s, the few remaining survivors had been absorbed into other tribes like the Oto and the Osage. Though the tribe itself vanished, their name lives on in the state and the great river that flows through it. The Osage, meanwhile, would continue to play a major role in the region's history, negotiating treaties and struggling to maintain their way of life as waves of American settlers pushed ever westward, a story of resilience and survival that would continue for generations. The first Europeans to leave their mark on Missouri were not looking to build cities or farms. They were looking for two things: souls and furs. In 1673, French-Canadian explorer Louis Joliet and a Jesuit missionary named Jacques Marquette journeyed down the Mississippi River. As they paddled past the mouth of a muddy, turbulent river, their Native American guides warned them about the Pequitanui or Missouri River. They became the first Europeans to document this mighty waterway and the land it drained. Following Marquette and Joliet's expedition, a new kind of Frenchman arrived, the coureurs de bois, or runners of the woods. Rugged, independent fur trappers and traders ventured deep into the interior, living among the Native American tribes. They learned their languages, adopted many of their customs, and often married Native American women. These traders were the crucial link between the European market for furs and the Native American hunters. They exchanged European goods like guns, metal pots, cloth, and beads for valuable beaver pelts, which were in high demand in Europe for making fashionable felt hats. This trade dramatically changed the lives of everyone involved. To support this lucrative fur trade, the French began to establish permanent settlements along the rivers. The first of these in what would become Missouri was Sainte-Geneviève, and founded around 1750 on the west bank of the Mississippi. It was a unique village with its vertical log houses built in a distinctive French colonial style. Not long after, in 1764, a fur trader named Pierre Laclede and his young stepson Auguste Chouteau selected a site on a bluff just south of the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. They chose the location for its strategic position, safe from flooding, and perfectly situated to control the fur trade on both rivers. They named their new trading post St. Louis in honor of King Louis IX of France. These early French settlements were very different from the English colonies on the East Coast. They were remote, isolated outposts of the French Empire characterized by a close and complex relationship with the local Native American tribes. Life was centered around the river, the Catholic Church, and the rhythms of the fur trade. While the French presence was relatively small in number, their influence was immense. They left a lasting legacy in the names of towns, rivers, and streets. St. Louis, St. Genevieve, Crèvecoeur, and in the foundational layout of Missouri's first cities. For nearly a century, Missouri was a quiet, remote corner of the French colonial empire, known as Louisiana. But global politics, fought in battles thousands of miles away, would soon change its destiny forever. In 1762, near the end of the French and Indian War, a conflict, France was losing badly to Great Britain. King Louis XV made a secret deal. To keep the vast Louisiana territory from falling into British hands, he gave it all to his cousin, King Charles III of Spain. Overnight, the French settlers in places like St. Louis and St. Genevieve became subjects of the Spanish crown. Though Spanish governors were sent to administer the territory, life on the ground didn't change much. French-speaking inhabitants largely left to manage their own affairs. Under Spanish rule, St. Louis continued to grow as the capital of Upper Louisiana. The Spanish were keen to populate the territory to create a buffer against the British and later American expansion. They offered generous land grants to settlers, attracting a new wave of immigrants. Among them was Daniel Boone, who moved to Spanish Missouri in 1799 and served as a local magistrate. The Spanish encouraged and controlled the fur trade, making the Chouteau family in St. Louis wealthy and powerful. The town thrived as a center of commerce, its influence stretching far up the Missouri River. While Missouri developed under Spanish administration, a new nation rose to the east, the United States of America. After winning independence, the young country looked westward with ambition. Americans hungry for land began to trickle across the Mississippi River, drawn by the promise of fertile soil and a new start. This created a new cultural dynamic. English-speaking Protestant American frontiersmen alongside French-speaking Catholic Creoles. The quiet, river-focused world of French traders began to feel the pressure of a different kind of expansion. Spanish control was ultimately a brief interlude. In 1800, another secret treaty transferred the territory back to France, now led by Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon had grand dreams of rebuilding a French empire in America, but his plans were complicated by a slave revolt in Haiti and the looming threat of war with Great Britain. He needed money, and defending such a vast, remote territory seemed nearly impossible. This set the stage for a decision in Paris that would transform Missouri into the gateway to a continental empire. The dawn of the 19th century was about to bring unimaginable change. Imagine buying a piece of land so large it doubles the size of your country, all without firing a single shot. That is exactly what happened in 1803. In Paris, representatives of the United States, originally sent by President Thomas Jefferson just to buy New Orleans, were met with a shocking offer. Napoleon Bonaparte, leader of France, needed money for his wars in Europe and decided to sell the entire Louisiana territory for a price of just $15 million. About 4 cents an acre, the United States acquired over 828,000 square miles of land. This incredible transaction the Louisiana Purchase is arguably the greatest real estate deal in history. It stretched from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains, and Missouri was right at its heart. Before 1803, Missouri was a remote colonial outpost, a frontier region. After the purchase, it found itself at the geographical center of a rapidly expanding nation. No longer the edge of the world, it became the starting point for the country's future. In the spring of 1804, a quiet but deeply significant ceremony took place in St. Louis. On March 9th, the Spanish flag was lowered. In its place, the French flag was raised, but the French flag flew for only one day. On March 10th, 1804, it too was lowered, and for the first time, the Stars and Stripes of the United States of America was raised over the territory, Missouri was officially American. The established French Creole families were wary of these new American arrivals. The American government moved quickly to organize its new possession. In 1812, it was reorganized and renamed the Missouri Territory. President Thomas Jefferson wasted no time. He chose his personal secretary, Meriwether Lewis. Lewis selected William Clark as co-captain. The expedition officially began its westward journey on May 14, 1804, setting out from St. Charles, the last outpost of American civilization. Clark's detailed maps and Lewis's scientific observations began immediately. They documented the fertile prairies, dense forests, and abundant wildlife. Their journals provide the first detailed scientific record of western Missouri. The Lewis and Clark expedition is a cornerstone of Missouri's identity. It forever cemented the state's role as the gateway to the West. It was a story of courage, endurance, and discovery that captured the imagination. It inspired pioneers, trappers, and traders to follow in their footsteps. The path they blazed up the Missouri River from St. Charles became a highway for a nation on the move. Missouri was the place where it all began. As tens of thousands of American settlers poured into the Missouri Territory after the War of 1812, the population grew at an astonishing rate. By 1818, the territory had enough residents to apply for statehood. This seemingly routine request, however, ignited a fierce and bitter national debate that threatened to tear the young country apart. The issue was slavery. Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, who had brought their enslaved African Americans with them. When Missouri applied to become a state, it intended to be a state where slavery was legal, just as it had been under French and Spanish rule. This proposal caused an uproar in Congress. 11 free states in the North, 11 slave states in the South. Admitting Missouri as a slave state would tip that balance of power in the Senate in favor of the South. A New York congressman named James Tolmage proposed an amendment. It would prohibit any new slaves from being brought into Missouri. It would grant freedom to all enslaved children born there once they reached the age of 25. This amendment passed in the House of Representatives, but it was rejected by the Senate, where the North and South were equal. The nation was at a deadlock. The debate over Missouri raged for 2 years. Leaders on both sides gave fiery speeches, and there was real talk of disunion and civil war. Thomas Jefferson described the crisis as a fire bell in the night. Finally, in 1820, a solution was reached, brokered largely by Speaker of the House Henry Clay. It became known as the Missouri Compromise. First, Missouri would be admitted to the Union as a slave state. Second, Maine would be admitted as a free state. Third, slavery would be prohibited north of the 36 degrees 30 minutes parallel. On August 10, 1821, Missouri officially became the 24th state. However, the deep divisions it exposed would not go away, setting the stage for the even greater conflict to come. The prelude to the war in Missouri was a bloody conflict, known as Bleeding Kansas. The Kansas-Nebraska Act let settlers decide on slavery for themselves. That opened the door to a violent rush by pro-slavery border ruffians and clashes with anti-slavery jayhawkers. For years, a brutal guerrilla war raged along the border, with raids, burnings, and killings. When the Civil War began in April 1861 with the firing on Fort Sumter, Missouri faced a critical choice. Governor Claiborne Fox Jackson wanted secession. A special state convention voted to remain in the Union. Jackson mobilized a pro-secession state militia near St. Louis. The commander of the St. Louis Arsenal, Captain Nathaniel Lyon, forced the militia to surrender. A riot broke out. Union soldiers fired into a hostile crowd, killing nearly 30 civilians. The state government fractured completely. Missouri now had two competing state governments, each claiming to be the legitimate authority. The first major battle was fought at Wilson's Creek. The battle was a bloody and confusing affair. Nathaniel Lyon was killed in the fighting, becoming the first Union general to die in the Civil War. The Battle of Pea Ridge was a decisive turning point. A major Union victory there effectively shattered the main Confederate army in the region and secured Missouri for the Union. However, the defeat of the large Confederate armies did not bring peace to Missouri. Instead, the conflict morphed into something more insidious and personal. The conflict evolved into a vicious and chaotic guerrilla war. One of the most infamous events was the Lawrence Massacre in August 1863. William Quantrill led about 450 bushwhackers. They burned much of the town to the ground. They systematically murdered nearly 200 men and boys. The Union response was swift and harsh. General Thomas Ewing issued General Order No. 11. 4 western Missouri counties were forcibly depopulated. Missouri became one of the most violent places in the nation. Over 1,000 separate battles and skirmishes took place. The war left deep and painful scars on the state's psyche. Rebuilding required reconstructing buildings and farms, and mending a society torn apart from within. While the rural parts of Missouri were devastated by the Civil War, the city of St. Louis experienced a different fate. It served as a crucial military headquarters and supply depot. This military activity, combined with its strategic location on the Mississippi River, fueled a massive economic boom. This wartime prosperity, really laid the foundation for an even greater period of growth, an era that Mark Twain, a Missourian himself, famously dubbed the Gilded Age. After the war, St. Louis entered its golden era. It became the 4th largest city in the United States. Its growth was symbolized by the completion of the magnificent Eads Bridge in 1874. It was a triumph of engineering, the world's first steel truss bridge, and it solidified St. Louis's position as a major transportation hub. This era of explosive growth saw the city transform. Grand buildings constructed from brick and ornate terracotta filled the London Patakopase Eyanomon Ponto Onomo was luxurious neighborhoods with stately mansions sprang up. In 1904, St. Louis hosted the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, better known as the World's Fair, an extravagant event that showcased the city's progress and prestige to a global audience. However, beneath this gilded surface, the city faced significant challenges. Rapid industrialization and immigration led to overcrowding, poor sanitation, and stark social inequality. The city government was often plagued by corruption, and labor unrest grew as workers began to organize for better pay and safer conditions. This contrast between glittering wealth and grinding poverty, between civic pride and social problems, was the defining characteristic of the Gilded Age, and St. Louis was a perfect example of its promises and its perils. While St. Louis was solidifying its status as an established industrial giant, a new city was exploding with growth on the state's western border. The key to Kansas City's initial boom was cattle. Texas ranchers after the Civil War needed a way to move massive herds to eastern markets. The Kansas City stock yards opened in 1871 became one of the world's largest. The city earned the cowtown reputation. Dusty streets, cowboys, cattle barons, and the gritty meatpacking trade. Civic leaders invested in infrastructure, parks, and boulevards and fountains, earning the City of Fountains. City planning transformed it into a proud, elegant Paris of the Plains. During Prohibition, the 1920s and 1930s, Tom Pendergast's machine ran the city. His politics let nightclubs and speakeasies operate openly, creating a wide-open town where liquor flowed and entertainment never stopped. That atmosphere nurtured a vibrant music scene. Kansas City jazz, swinging rhythms, and blues-influenced improvisation flourished in clubs. It launched legends like Count Basie and Charlie Parker, cementing KC as a crucible of American culture. No trip to Missouri is complete without a visit to its most famous landmark, the Gateway Arch in St. Louis. This gleaming stainless steel monument symbolizes America's westward expansion. Its soaring curve is a doorway, a gateway to opportunity. The real adventure begins inside. A unique tram carries you up through the hollow legs. From the small windows at the apex, behold an awe-inspiring panorama. To the east, look across the Mississippi into Illinois. To the west, St. Louis spreads out beneath you, Old Courthouse, Bush Stadium. Beneath the arch, a world-class museum tells the story of westward expansion, Native Americans, French and Spanish colonial periods, Lewis and Clark, pioneers who followed the trails west. A visit to the Gateway Arch is a journey through time, a perfect starting point for exploring Missouri. If St. Louis represents Missouri's historic gateway, then honestly, the Lake of the Ozarks represents its ultimate playground. On any given summer day, the lake is buzzing with activity. Speedboats pull water skiers and wakeboarders, while pontoon boats cruise at a more leisurely pace. Fishing is a huge draw. Life on the shore is just as vibrant. The lake is lined with a diverse array of resorts, marinas, waterfront restaurants, and bars. In the southern part of Missouri, nestled deep in the Ozark Mountains, you will find a city unlike any other. Branson, known as the live entertainment capital of the world. Country music legends, rock and roll reviews, magic shows, comedy acts, grand Broadway-style productions. The city's entertainment scene is built on a foundation of wholesome, family-friendly fun. One of the most popular is Silver Dollar City, a theme park with a unique 1880s Ozark Mountain theme. Another major draw is the Titanic Museum attraction. These attractions, along with museums, go-kart tracks, and mini golf courses, ensure there is always something to do in Branson. This combination of world-class live entertainment and stunning natural scenery is what makes Branson so unique. The true soul of Missouri can often be found in its quieter, natural spaces. In the southern part of the state, the Ozark National Scenic Riverways is a must-see. The best way to experience it is by canoe, kayak, or tube, letting the gentle current carry you past towering stone bluffs. Missouri is also known as the Cave State. Beneath the rolling hills lies a hidden world of more than 7,000 caves, from the majestic elephants of rock at Elephant Rock State Park to the shut-ins and waterfalls at Johnson's Shut-In State Park. The Katy Trail State Park, the nation's longest rails to trails project. You can't truly know a place until you have tasted its food, with two distinct and proud food capitals. Another local invention is the St. Louis-style pizza. One of the most iconic is the gooey butter cake. You might try a slinger, a classic diner dish. Missourians love to get together and celebrate. These events are the perfect way to experience the local flavor and friendly spirit of the state's communities. From the mighty rivers that carved its landscape to the vibrant cities that pulse with energy and culture, Missouri is a state that defies simple labels. This is a land of profound contrasts and endless stories, a place that truly embodies the heart of America. The nickname, the Show Me State, is not a challenge, but a heartfelt invitation to come and see for yourself all the wonders it holds. Now the journey is yours to take. Perhaps you will feel the pull of history. Maybe you will seek the thrill of a roller coaster or the peaceful serenity of a hike. Whatever path you choose, Missouri offers a wealth of experiences waiting to be discovered. So consider this your official invitation. Pack your bags, bring your curiosity, and come explore the Show Me State. See the history, taste the food, hear the music, and meet the people who make this state so special. There are so many hidden gems and unforgettable moments waiting for you here in the heart of the country. Thank you for joining me on this 25-minute journey through Missouri. If you enjoyed this glimpse into one of America's most fascinating places, please give this video a like, leave a comment below with what you would love to see in Missouri, and don't forget to subscribe for more places to love. Your next great adventure is waiting.